What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, more as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to this episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and boy, do we have a special guest. My main lady, Malorie Nicole, is in the house. What's up, Malorie?
I'm so glad to be here. I'm so excited to talk to you. I always have so much fun when we link up.
Oh my gosh. You don't know this, Malorie, but I've only had a couple repeat guests, and you're one of them now. So
I'm honored because this is a big show. When you invited me back, I feel like our first interview was before your podcast completely exploded the way that it did. And I see you as just an absolute rock star in the podcasting world. Like, you've really
thank you.
taken your podcast to the moon. So to invite me back to your show was an honor. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. And you can give me as many compliments as you want. I will not fight you on that at all. Well, since you have been on the show before, and since you just kind of mentioned the show's grown a lot, I like to do a little bit of housekeeping for new listeners. Do you mind if I do that really quickly, and then we'll get rolling here?
Of course.
So for listeners who are new to the show, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People are living their passions and those creating greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. And Malorie is neither short of passion nor greatness. So I like to give origin story. We connected through Nick Peterson. God, I guess it was Clubhouse time. So
it was that weird Clubhouse season.
Yeah, for those that know what I'm talking about. So that was how we met, was through Nick and through Clubhouse, and then that's obviously kind of like done its thing. But and then I think I did your show and you did my show. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
That's so cool. And so it's been a couple years since we did each other's shows, but I invited Malorie to come back to the show. So I'm going to give a little background. So we met through that, connected, and it was like a good connection, and found that we had a lot in common, right? Just around like how we show up in the world. I know we're both conscious leaders. I was doing a lot of coaching and advising at the time, and you built a pretty successful business in the world of coaching. We'll be talking about that. But I saw Malorie was coming up with her new book, The Abundance Decision, and she had just launched it or was about to launch it. And I was like, I want to hang out with her and talk about her new book. So I invited her to come on the show to talk about her book, and here we are. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And I just remembered too that when we did your episode on my podcast, you had just released your book. So we seem to be following a trend of support for one another here in this, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's what friends do, man. We hook each other up when we need it. So on the last show we did, this was back when I used to sing on the show. So for new listeners, you're like, you used to sing? And I'm like, yeah, you can go watch them. They're on YouTube. I used to always do karaoke to the guests when they came on. But then what I found was that all the social media platforms would block it because it has like copywritten music on it. So
okay. I noticed that you stopped doing that because I follow your social media account, and I wondered what the decision making was there, because it was funny. It was really silly.
It was I was trying to be different. I was like trying to do like the whole like James Corgan like car karaoke thing. And so I vowed to bring it back. Actually, I have right here a ukulele that I've been learning to play. So I was like, I'll play the ukulele on the next go around and sing to my own music, so it can't get blocked by the powers that be. But we sang Taylor Swift, and she's like, since now she's become like the number one most powerful person on earth,
right?
I mean, she was pretty powerful
for her too. Yeah. But still, now it's like you can't open up your phone and within 30 seconds see something about her.
Yeah, so I'm 45 years old, and which means I'm probably a little bit too old to appreciate Taylor Swift. But I keep seeing all these, God, what's the word? Like old losers from my high school, like bragging about being Swifties, and I'm like, really? I'm like, you're in your 40s, bro. Like, you shouldn't admit that out loud. It's like, that's like Britney Spears' new book, her talking about being disturbed when she would see old men by themselves at her concert as a teenager. For whatever reason, I feel the same way about this.
It feels a little dark, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm just not, like, I'm just so, I mean, like, I didn't even know she was as famous as she is. And then I started doing, like, Andrew Schultz, who I love. Do you follow him at all?
No, I don't.
Oh my God. He's ridiculous. He's this, like, really famous stand-up comedian right now. And he was, I'm getting a little background noise from you. Hold on. Like clicking. Do you hear that? Is that from me or you?
I don't hear
Hello?
anything. Let me adjust a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah, play with your sound. I keep getting this little like clicking. Hey, Sid, make sure we edit this out. Let's try it again. Maybe it's me.
I'm playing with this in my hand. You might be picking this up.
Yeah, totally picking that up. I'm like, what
Sorry.
is that? Sounds like a rapper.
I just realized. Yeah. Okay, it's on the other side of the table now.
She's like,
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I'm playing with a fidget thing.
Yeah. Hey, we're keeping. Actually, Sid, leave this in. We're keeping all this in the show. So
hey, like, neurodivergent folks out there.
Is she playing with a fidget spinner?
They're called specs. They're great for those neurodivergent people in the world that like to do two things at once. So yeah, I didn't realize that the mic was going to pick that up.
I was like, what is that noise? I'm like, it's like disturbing me. So anyway, back to Taylor Swift. So Andrew Schultz is like, he's doing a bit on her, and he's like, do you realize how many #1 hits she's had? And I just didn't. I of course have no idea because I don't care about her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am a kind of a data junkie. And so I went and Googled. She's like up there with like Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, like beating them in some categories.
Okay, now that is news to me too. I realized that we were talking about a ultimate pop star, but I didn't realize it was like that.
Like she's legitimately, it's like up there with the Beatles and Michael Jackson. It's like in some categories she's crushing them, and like #1 hits, most sold albums, biggest tours. Like it's like now even adjusted for like today's numbers, like it is insane. She's literally won, I think, as many. She's had as many #1 hits as like Michael Jackson on the Billboard charts. And so when you think of it like that, it's a little mind blowing, especially if you're of an age where like Michael Jackson wasn't just known as a fucking sicko, but known as the king of pop, right? Which is, I grew up, look, I'm born in 1978. So 84 was when the Thriller album came out, and I was 6 years old.
It was a big deal.
And he was like drinking Pepsi, and like his hair was getting lit on fire on commercials on TV, which you might be too young to even know how big that was. Like a big deal when his hair was lit on fire and like his hair caught on fire on a commercial. So it was like it was a cultural phenomenon when it happened. But anyway, so yeah, dude, I was like walking around with like a Michael Jackson glove, dressing up like Michael Jackson for Halloween, begging my parents to let me watch Thriller, the music video, when it came out on like on MTV. So yeah, I was like, no way, she's that popular. She totally is. So this all makes sense now. The world is right. So anyway, I don't know how. Oh, I got off on the tangent because we sang
Taylor Swift, and we're looking at how our lives have changed in the last few years, and also how Taylor Swift has changed in the last couple years.
Yes, she's now dating Travis Kelce. Did you see that? Did you see some of the stuff online where these girls were going to their boyfriends and they're like saying how like they were basically like fucking with their boyfriends. They're like, hey, have you heard of this guy named Travis Kelce? Taylor Swift's totally going to make his career.
Yes. The on the map stuff.
Yeah, put him on
the map. Yes. And have you ever considered starting a pop culture podcast? Because I'm just saying, you're pretty good in the podcasting world. If you ever wanted to branch out in your podcasting career, I think you could crush pop culture.
Maybe I should, because I don't really like pay attention to the news, but I do catch some of the pop culture stuff. For another time. So hey, I want to do your formal bio, and then let's talk about what's going on in your world. Does that work?
Sure.
So you guys, Malorie is an executive coach for high growth small companies to medium sized companies looking to scale their business. We're talking like, a few million to like 7, 8, 9 figures and above. Real life Wendy Rhodes for our Billions fans out there. So she's called the real life Wendy Rhodes from her clients. Author of the new book, The Abundance Decision. We were talking about it this summer, and here it is. Host of the Abundantly Clear podcast. That's how we got to know each other. And also tell us about this. Forbes rated your podcast one of the top podcasts out there. So man, you are crushing it in the world. Why don't you, for our listeners that don't know of you or your work, maybe like give a little bit of your background and your origin story, and then we can talk about the new book and what's going on with that.
Totally. So my background, interestingly enough, or not so interestingly enough, doesn't have anything to do with coaching. I worked for an engineering firm for a number of years. I went to school for geospatial technology, total like science stuff, studied water quality, totally different world. And I got really, really sick in 2015, and that led me into health and wellness coaching. And by way of learning about health and wellness coaching, I started to dive into different coaching certifications and understanding human behavior, and all of the stuff that I do now with clients really started at my own kind of shift in my life of what was a really, really challenging and dark period of the stuff that I was experiencing in my health. But it opened up a ton of doors. And I think that so many people can look at their life and say, hey, that was a pivotal moment for me. And often the pivotal moments are the hardest thing that you're experiencing or have experienced, and it ends up being something really light. And that's kind of how things started in coaching with me.
So hold on, I got whenever I'm running the show, as you know, like I'm managing like 3 things at once. So what was the health thing? Did you go into like, do you feel comfortable sharing that or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the time we're going to go back to 2015, which is, you can go on TikTok or you can go on Instagram and learn so much about health and wellness right now that you couldn't in 2015. And I had developed a gluten intolerance, and it was impacting my liver enzymes, and it was doing all kinds of like really, really funky stuff to my body. And it was just throwing my entire body for like mayhem. Is what was showing up on my blood work. So I was getting a bunch of blood work done, and nobody was really able to tell me, hey, try this or let's do this, because you can't really test for an intolerance. You can test for celiacs, but you can't test for an intolerance. And now if you go on social media, you could learn everything I just said just by, going in a search engine and saying I've got some of these health issues, because there's so many advocates out in the world that use social media to help people with things like this.
Mm-hmm.
But when I experienced this, it was kind of new. There weren't, it wasn't like talked about the way it is now. People didn't really know what a gluten intolerance was. It was still like the redheaded stepchild. It was just this new and weird thing. And so it took me a little while to figure out what was actually going on with my body. And in that time period, I mean, like Darius, I was like in bed for hours a day. Like turning the lights on would give me migraines. I had rashes all over my body. It was really, really bad. It was almost like I had the flu for 4 months. That's basically what it felt like.
And had you had that ever growing up, or this was like adult onset, like gluten intolerance?
Adult onset issues.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so and it like came out of nowhere.
My understanding is a lot of this stuff, and I can't remember if it was I have a friend that was talking to me about this, where he was talking about how I think it was Tim Ferriss did a show on how the brain, essentially you can like reprogram the brain for a lot of these allergies. Have you heard about this?
I haven't, but I will tell you that dairy used to bother me, and dairy doesn't bother me anymore. So yeah, I'm a firm believer that there's more going on. Like it took me a while to go through this health journey, and I don't think your body just like develops a gluten intolerance one day, like overnight. I think I had a series of inflammation and things that were happening in my system, and then I developed, the intolerance. But I do think there's way more going on to our bodies and our minds than just something as simple as like you woke up and you have an allergy to a food overnight.
Yeah, so I might be I can literally, there's probably at least a 25% chance that everything that's about to come out of my mouth is completely made up. So there's a 75% chance of what I'm going to say is truthful, and 25% like you can actually put down on a piece of paper and throw it in the trash can. But what I heard was that basically allergies are an autoimmune response, right? And so some of it's environmental, and some of it is actually just like essentially like your brain is sending signals to your immune system and making it react a certain way. And so I believe it was a friend of mine we were talking about, and how this came up was we were talking about hallucinogenics and how you can actually leverage hallucinogenics to reprogram your brain so that it does not send those signals, so that you don't have allergies, essentially.
Okay.
And so like people, there's like actual work being done now where, and I guess the point of it was, when you're really young, a lot of the like either physiological or mental like things that happen, like your brain actually is developing, and you're taking in all this information, and there's this like neuroplasticity that's happening at a very, very young age, right? And that as you get older, essentially, like that stops happening, right? The neuroplasticity is not as as you know, bendable, I guess, and that you can recreate that through the use of hallucinogenics. And that essentially, like, it turns all that shit back on, and then you can go and start doing the stuff that you were doing when you were really young to create who you are today again as an adult. And they're
To
finding that
reprogram
actually,
your belief systems.
yeah, but well, belief systems. I'm not even talking about belief systems. Belief systems are like a one aspect of it, right? Like a belief system is like a neuro, you know, like if you're talking like Joe Dispenza type stuff, where it's like, hey, I've created these neural pathways through like repetitive thoughts and repetitive actions, right? This is actually like, I've created neural pathways for a physiological response due to some sort of like interaction between gluten, for instance. And that I can cure all these things because that's just an autoimmune response that's happening because the brain says this is what you should do when this happens, and then it creates this, you know, this fight or flight system inside the body, right? So anyway, like I said, there's at least a 25% chance all that what I said is fake news, but it's 75% chance what I said is true. So I don't know where that came from. So what I'm saying is, do more hallucinogenics. So you decided to get into coaching. Obviously, you know, you made this big change in your life. And so how did that, like, I get, you know, there's always this, like, we're in a world now where I'm seeing other people build podcasts, right? I've been doing podcasting now for 3.5 years. How long have you been podcasting for?
You know, someone asked me this week and I had to go back and look. So I started my podcast in 2018, but I rebranded it in 2019. So if you historically look at my podcast, it looks like it started in 2019. But I had someone, you know, help me with rebranding, and the way that we did it was really complicated and probably unnecessary. But that's
5 years in my book. I mean, this started off as a live stream. So just so we're being honest, this started off as a live stream 3.5 years ago, and it didn't turn into a podcast till 2.5 years ago. So like 4 or 5 years. And so there's like this connection between podcasting and books and coaching, and they're all kind of like intertwined, right? I did it backwards, which was I wrote a book for the hell of it, not knowing that people do this other stuff with their books. And then I quit my job and was like, hey, I have this book and maybe I should do something with it. And then I started a podcast to promote the book. And then I liked podcasting, so I just started doing it for fun.
That's why I love you. It is.
I did it completely backwards. Wait.
I can do all this digital marketing stuff with I'm already a badass. I can use digital marketing to like show more people about what I can do. Like, I feel like you're like the greatest, like it's reverse engineering it to a T, and you're such a story of that. It's
called stupidity for most people.
It's brilliant.
Well, so here's the thing. People are like I don't actually, they're like, what are you selling on your podcast? I'm like, nothing. like I'm like, my goal when I started the podcast was to get enough listeners that I could get sponsors, you know? And they're like, you don't have like a call to action? I'm like, nope. And they're like, you're not monetizing it? I'm like, I'm trying to get more sponsors just so I can pay my team to do the work, so I can actually just do more podcasts. So I'm probably one of the few people out there that's like starving artist podcaster.
But you enjoy your life so much. You always enjoy. I feel like every time we catch up, which really isn't, you know, super often. I think if you're listening to this, probably sounds like we talk all the time. But we just always pick up right where we left off the last time we talked. And every time we connect, you're loving the season that you're in. And that's what I think is so brilliant about how you do entrepreneurship, because so many people are looking for the end goal or the goalpost, or like trying to just get to some place where they think their life is going to be, you know, wildly different because they're going to achieve some level of monetary success or whatever that thing is. And because you've gone through it, like it's the process. You keep going or you get bored. You keep striving for greatness because that's what you do. It's just who you are. It's in your identity. It's embedded in you.
Yeah, I was having a conversation yesterday. First of all, thank you. I appreciate that comment and observation about me. And yeah, I have a podcast actually called The World Biggest Lie, which is about that topic specifically, which is when I do X, I will feel like Y, or when I get to A, I will feel like B. And I did that over and over and over again. And I was like, what's the definition of saying you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different outcome? And I was like, I had done it a few times over, and I kept going for these bigger things. And then I get them and I'd feel the same and I wouldn't celebrate them. And so I was talking to this guy yesterday, really successful guy. I'm trying to buy a piece of his company right now. And he was talking about, and he's in his mid 30s. So no, I think you're in your early 30s, right?
Mm-hmm. 33.
I don't want to date. Oh yeah. So you're early 30s. So he's probably, he's a little bit older than you. And he's like, he was just like, had this hedonic, he's on the hedonic treadmill. And like hardcore, and he was like, I just wanted to prove to people that told me I couldn't do it, that I couldn't get a jet, I couldn't own a house in Miami, and now I want to build $1 billion business. And I was sitting there, and half of me was like, man, I can't wait to invest in this guy's company, because I know he's gonna work his fucking ass off.
Because he's gonna grow his company, and it's gonna be great.
Because he's gonna grow $1 billion company, right? And I was like, dude, I want to own 20% or 30% of that $1 billion company. I can't wait for that to happen. And then the other part of me was, I was like, man, the funny thing about this whole conversation is he's going to feel the exact same way when he hits that $1 billion.
Yep.
And it was like this, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything to him because I know he's not in a place where he's going to resonate.
He can't hear that from you right now.
No, but when he gets to that $1 billion and he feels the same way, I'll be like, hey, bud, here's some coaches you should go talk to. Right. So, and thanks for the 300 mil, by the way. I'm really pumped that I made all this money with you. But yeah, it's I think that, you have to go a lot of, I have a coach, Dr. Jeff Spencer, who was my coach a couple years ago. Great guy. He was Lance Armstrong's coach. You know Jeff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He does a lot of stuff with Nick, and I love Jeff. He's
really, really wonderful.
He's a stud. And so he's just like, in that season of life, you have to do it there's no other way to learn it, but by learning through pain, by, and I just think that's part of that growing up process. So I wanted to kind of back up for a second. So when you started coaching, you have the new book. And so I know, let's talk about your coaching practice a little bit because the book is born out of that. Is that correct?
Yeah. But I think part of what we might've skipped over a little bit, and it might've been me, is how did I go from health coaching and learning about health coaching to working with clients now? Cause I think you were going to get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I picked up on it earlier and wanted to loop us back.
Yeah. So I actually, now that you say it, I actually forgot that you were doing health coaching. So when you're doing health coaching, was it like, hey, this is someone that's struggling with whatever they're struggling with and helping them feel good? Talk about that a little bit. And then what was that bridge to more of this performance coaching, Wendy Rhodes type stuff?
Totally. So I had a health coaching business for 90 days. It was the shortest business that ever existed. And it took off really quickly, but what happened was I was using Facebook. I was using social media to promote my health coaching business. And I guess unconsciously, I was talking more about mindset and behavior and performance because I had already enrolled in these other coaching certifications that were mastery coaching certifications. They weren't health related. I was just continuing my journey in the self-education piece of coaching. And in working with health clients, I saw the behaviors that were happening and what was really going on with people's habits and behaviors, and how so much of it goes back to what we were talking about. We briefly surfaced earlier is our belief system and who we are and our identity and the whole nine. And I had people reaching out to me via Facebook that had very successful companies that were asking for help in mindset. And it threw me off because I never intended to start a mindset coaching or performance coaching business. That's not really what I saw, but I was working with a mentor for a time, and it was just feedback. The feedback loops were there. It was over and over and over again. I kept getting proof, or the feedback loop was doing what it was doing to show me, hey, you really need to step into what you're being called to step into right now. Just go for it. So I pivoted my message a little bit from a marketing perspective, started taking on a different type of client, and really found that that's the type of coaching that I'm best at. Now, this was 7 years ago at this point. So the mindset coaching that I was doing 7 years ago, if you compare it to, now and the 7 years of experience working with people growing companies, it's not even the same. Like, I can't even compare that version of me to this version of me and my ability to coach people. But that is the transition of how it started and what happened and how it grew into more of the performance-based, mindset-based coaching that I do now.
And so, what would be like an average client interaction for you, or if I know they're all different, but what would be a more typical one? Like a CEO of a 10, $15 million company is struggling with what, and how are you helping them fix what?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question, man.
That's a
hard question.
I'm
going to answer it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to answer it.
I was going to hit you from a different angle, but yeah, go for it.
So there's a handful of people that come to me, and I'll get into the detail of your question, but I think this is where we can start. Sometimes people come to me because they're trying to outsolve their problems. And we have that conversation on the first call. I feel like I keep trying to fix my team, or I feel like my business is stagnant, or I feel like, we've hit 5 million and we've been here for 3 years and I don't know what it is and I don't know why. And it has more to do with their personal growth and performance and the way that they're leading their team and their culture and their vision than it does the data in their marketing, right? And that's not to say that marketing isn't marketing, because it plays a massive role in it. But when they allow themselves to grow personally, that's when something shifts in the business. So I've got that person that comes to me. I also have the person that comes to me that's like, my business is growing so fast, and I know that I need to support my own capacity of growth. I know that in the next 24 months, my team is going to triple, and the amount of responsibility that is going to require from me is going to be new and different. And it means that I'm going to have to take care of myself in a different way. And I'm going to have to really work on my communication, and I'm going to have to really work on the standards that I'm setting for the team. So I've got like two versions of people. There's the person that's like in a pretty decent amount of pain that needs that realignment and that shift. And then there's also the person that, people hire coaches, people invest in themselves, especially people that have built established companies. And that is, where someone might find me too. They heard me on a podcast, or now they've read my book. That's already happening. And I am a good fit for the next type of coaching that they're looking for. So there's two different areas that I would attract somebody into the type of coaching that I do. Now,
cool.
We can move deeper into like the specifics if you want from there, but I feel like that might be helpful.
Well, before we go into the specifics, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously we can go, and I actually think that was pretty specific, because I think that obviously we can say like, what is a specific person's issue? But what I just heard you say, which, look, I frame every single statement I make with my own experience, right? As anybody does. And so
sure, we all have our own bias.
Right. And so, I am a trained conscious capitalist and conscious leader. And in conscious leadership, there's a saying, which is, as goes the leadership goes the organization. And so, and I think it was Jim Rohn or somebody that had.
Yeah, we both did that certification. Oh, I don't think we did it at the same time though.
Well, I did it through Stagen. You might have done it through. Did you do the conscious? Which one did you do? I did it through
conscious capitalism. Or
yeah, you did. Did you go through conscious capitalism directly?
Yes.
Okay, so I did. So Rand Stagen's on the board of conscious capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So Stagen Institute is like it's essentially like based off the tenets of conscious capitalism,
mm-hmm.
but it's also like high performance leadership development, right? So I don't know conscious capitalism. I only know it through the lens of Stagen.
Okay.
So there's a lot of like the C-suite of Amazon goes through Stagen, and Whole Foods. Like in my class was like the now current CEO of Whole Foods is one of my classmates.
Okay, cool.
And so it's a very curated, like smaller group thing, and it's a 1-year program, and it's 20-person cohort, and we show up and we do a shit ton of work for a whole year, and then we get our ILP certification. But yeah, so I forgot that you had that training. So yeah, it's that makes sense, right? If my business is stagnant, I always say, like, hey, if your business is failing, go whip out a mirror. It's your fault, right? If your business is stuck, it's your fault, because I think it's the quote, the Jim Rohn quotes, like, I've never seen an organization that growth outpaces that of its highest level leader, right?
Exactly.
And there's different ways of getting there, right? You can do it through autocratic leadership, through strategic leadership, through more like collaborative leadership, or just through more traditional leadership. And each will yield you a different result depending on the type of team you have, depending on how you approach that team. The more progressive folks are going to be trying to do it through a more collaborative approach, because they want to have the most highly engaged team. What I found, funny enough, is some teams aren't ready for that, right? Like, if I come to a team that's been in a much more traditional, has more of a traditional background. So I'll use an example. I have a company I advise for. They're based in the Southeast, small town, Alabama. Like, it's filled with very traditional mindset people, right? These are people from small town Alabama. They love their University of Alabama football, and they love God, and like, everything is very structured, and it's very like hierarchical. And I trained their team, and it was like, they were like freaking crickets. You could hear crickets chirping, like, because like no one talks, and like they watch what they say, and I mean, I was with them for 4 months straight, and I was like, dude, I cannot get them to speak up. And they have a really beautiful, wonderful CEO, and she's very warm, but it's very like, you got to be polite. No one says impolite things about each other, and this is just the culture of that world. So coming at them from like a San Francisco, let's everyone speak their mind and say what they think about each other, and let's have some radical candor in the business. Like, they're like, I'm not doing that. Like, that would be rude, right? So I do think that there's an element of meeting people where they're at to try to elevate them to the next level. And so when you were saying that, I do think that there's like that leader needs to elevate in order for the team to. But there's also an element of meeting people where they're at. Like, what are your thoughts about that?
I totally. I mean, I completely align with what you're saying. And one of the reasons I wrote the book is because I wanted to explain to people how I work with people. Because I found that throughout the years, sometimes I'd get on a call with someone, and kind of like what you're saying, it just was like, hey, you want this type of coaching? You want coaching A and I do coaching B, or you want me to coach you on apples and I coach on oranges? And this just doesn't make sense, because I've always known that my coaching isn't like an elevator speech. I mean, my response to you when you asked the question of, hey, give me an example, it was a really long response. And I didn't even give you like one specific example, right? Like, there's layers to it, because we're talking about personal development and human behavior and how you lead a company. And it's kind of a loaded answer, right? Yeah. So that is why I wrote the book, because I think that I'm not everyone's perfect coach. I'm not the best fit for everyone. And I'm totally okay with that. I'm 100% okay with not being I'm not striving to be the best coach in America. I just want to be a really incredible coach for the people that I work with, and make sure that I'm putting the message out to attract those entrepreneurs that are like, yeah, you know what? I think you're going to be a good coach for me. Because I don't think there's back to what you were talking about with psychedelics. There's some people that are going to listen to this that like psychedelics is what healed them and changed them. And there's some people that wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I think part of like societal problem, more or less, is we assume there's one thing that needs to work for everybody. And that's just not the way I think about things.
Yeah, those people need to do way more psychedelics. Jesus.
It's exactly what I said. Did everyone hear me say that?
Yeah. In other words, like, you should be smoking bufo and like, do the toad. So I know I'm with you. So with like your clients, when you say like you're referred to as like the real life Wendy Rhodes, or you didn't say that, I said that. You said that your clients like kind of like refer to you as that. And right now the show Billions is now on Netflix, so more people who don't want to pay $10.99 for Showtime like myself are just now watching it for the first time. I'm a long time Billions fan, so for me,
Well, I might have been wrong about that. Is it Suits that's on Netflix and Billions is still on Showtime? I might have
I
been wrong about that.
I don't know. I've only watched it on Showtime, and I stopped watching it once Prince took over for Axe Capital, and I was like, I'm not interested in this. But so I got to catch back up on it. But I love Wendy Rhodes. She like my favorite thing about Wendy Rhodes is that she's a dominatrix with her husband.
Yeah, that's why I can't watch it.
I'm like
seen one episode of this all of the season. I don't watch it because my client started calling me it before I even knew what it was, and I was like, "Why have 3 people called me Wendy Rose this month? I don't know what this means." So I started I Googled it and I watched a couple episodes, and I was like, "All right, I understand where they're coming from. This show's not for me. Like, I can't. I'm done here."
You're like, I don't want to be
I feel too close to this.
I don't want to be Paul Giamatti's dominatrix.
No, I'm
good. Yeah, no. I was like, oh, I'm like, this show's weird. I like weird shit. So for me, I was like, oh, this is great. But yeah, like for those people that are not familiar with the show, Axe Capital's this big hedge fund. It's a bunch of like alpha male energy, alpha female energy, and they have this woman who's basically like a psychologist whose job is to kind of like figure out how to get people to perform, get them out of their heads, figure out what's stopping them from being their best self. And she it's a lot of tough love. Sometimes it's motherly love, but she kind of meets them where they're at, and she like roughs them up a lot of the times because these guys all need to get roughed up, especially Axe, who's like the ultimate alpha male billionaire. Like she's the only person he'll listen to. And so that's kind of like when we say Wendy Rhodes, what we mean. So I don't think, obviously, that's not your energy necessarily. You definitely have like a nice hard edge to you.
I'm a softer, but I'm also real. It's like, yeah, it's not as I don't stand up and talk to my clients 3 inches from their face with a elevated tone and push them to their edge. It's different.
I've done that before. It usually doesn't work out that well. So when we talk about the book, though, The Abundance Decision, what does that mean? Because I think that's like having been someone that named my own book, The Core Value Equation. It's a very meaningful title. This sounds like a very meaningful title. Where did the title come from? What does it mean? Talk to us a little bit about your kind of like high level methodology or thought process around what the book is.
Yeah. So the reason I titled it The Abundance Decision is because I believe that living in abundance is a decision. There's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of talk out there about, abundance and how to create an abundant life. And to be honest, a lot of it just feels like fluff to me. I am very much on the party of active participation, and the decisions that you're making day to day are going to result in some type of outcome. And if you don't like what's going on, you got to look at the decision. You have to look in history. You've got to look backwards to look forwards. That's something that Jeff Spencer talks a lot about. We need to look in the rearview mirror to see where we're going. And so much of it has to do with the patterns and the behaviors of who we are and who we're allowing ourselves to be that result into the experiences we're having, whether it's the amount of money that we're making, the type of alignment that we feel in our business, whatever it is. And it also translates into our personal life. So the book is really a roadmap. There's 5 key principles that I talk about. It's identity, structure, boundaries, expression, and vision. And I said those in the wrong order. Vision was supposed to be second. And that's really the roadmap to how I help my clients and what it is that I'm really working on with them to help them feel really aligned in their company and, to be honest, like decrease their stress and enjoy their life and have fun building businesses. Because there's a stigma that we don't talk about in entrepreneurship. A lot of people are miserable in entrepreneurship, but they don't know who to talk to. They don't know if they're supposed to like go to a therapist or tell their friends. Like, it's this weird thing that happens. They're making a bunch of money, but they don't really like it. And I have already found that in a matter of a few weeks, this book is like really changing people's lives that are stuck to that degree. Does it mean that it's going to change every single person's life that reads it? No, but people that are really stuck, it's really giving them the tools that they need to make the decisions to find the alignment again. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to write a book that was going to help people do that.
And so, like, do you think, so one question I have, because I have a lot of friends that are more of the abundance mindset, and I agree with you that, I think that money is very personal. And I think when we talk about abundance, at least I think of money, even though I think abundance can be relationship based, an abundance of friends, abundance of love, abundance of resources, abundance of experiences. I do think that like having a scarcity mindset can be a lot of the times. And I was interviewing actually yesterday. Do you know Gay Hendricks? You know who that is?
Yeah. Big Leap's one of
Yeah.
my favorites.
Yeah, so he wrote a book called Conscious Luck, which I had read, and I got introduced to him through Mike. Actually, I had heard of him through Mike Koenig, and then I read his book, and I just hit him up, and we did the show yesterday, so the show hasn't came out yet, um, but we were talking, and he talked about this being pickled, like when he was like pickled at birth, in like his father had died when he was in utero, essentially, when and dropped dead of like essentially not taking care of himself. And so he said he was pickled in like fear and pickled in shame, right? Sorry, he said he was pickled in shame. I said I was pickled in fear, in utero. And so I think some of this stuff, especially like abundance or scarcity, I would say I was pickled in scarcity, right? Like my family was a very scarcity mindset family. And I think a lot of families, especially like myself being 45 years old, my mom is a child of people who came from the Great Depression. She was born in Western Pennsylvania, where there was a lot of scarcity. So like when you're surrounded by people that have a scarcity mindset growing up, which I mean, my family, for all intents and purposes, was a pretty wealthy family, but grew up with full-blown scarcity mindset because my parents had kind of grown up where things had been taken away from them, and my dad was had his whole life taken away from him because we had to basically flee Iran when I was a year and a half old and he was 40. And so I remember like I've actually just now barely starting to like turn the corner on like where I would say it's not even where I have an abundance mindset, but it's more of like I just don't have a scarcity mindset.
Not reactionary.
So it's like, yeah, like I'm in the middle where like I'll give an example. I have a friend who's sick right now, and he just got diagnosed with stage 2 pancreatic cancer.
So sorry to hear that.
And he's got a young family, and anyway, some of us are trying to he's got a bunch of assets that are illiquid. I don't want to go into too many details because it's his personal business, and people who are listening to this will know who I'm talking about. But anyway, I was thinking about trying to buy some of his assets to try to help him out. And I'm in the middle of raising money. My income situation is kind of wonky right now. I might have to put a ton of money into this new thing I'm doing. And so I was like, a part of me is like, hey dude, abundance mindset, just like cut a check, help them. And the other part of me is like, but I don't know what's going to happen with this other stuff. And I get super uncomfortable when I don't have an overabundance of cushion. And so I'm like having tons of friction. Right. So like you as a coach hearing this situation, like how would you approach that? Like,
well, there's layers, right? And part of what I talk about in the book is this isn't a one and done. This is how we live our life. We continue to go back to the abundance decision over and over and over again. And it's really personal. So to you, I mean, and we're recording now, so I'm not going to do this, but I would want to dive in a little bit and see, like, is your intuition like really, really calling you? Like, is your intuition screaming at you to just write this check? Or is it actually fear that's telling you to write the check because you think that's going to solve something? You see what I'm saying? Like sometimes we have that voice of intuition or fear and we confuse them. And that's also in the book too, because our logic brain serves a purpose. It doesn't do any of us any good just to live our life based off of intuition alone. We're exhausted when we do that. We have to look at data. We've got to look at the things. And it sounds like in this position, in your case, there is some logic that needs to be a part of this process, because I don't know what's going on with your new venture that you're working on. But if giving this money to him is totally going to tank that, and maybe it's not, maybe it is just a fear response, but that's something that you would want to consider. And this is the type of thing, like your question, this is the type of thing that a client would come to me with. Hey, is it time to exit this company? Is it time to invest in this? Is it time to hire a new COO? Because this is what I'm seeing. Like, these are the types of conversations that I have with people that helps just sort their heads out, because you already know the answer. I know you well enough to know that you already know the answer. You just may need someone to ask you a few questions to get you there. And that's usually what it is. It's not that I bring some like, if you watch Wendy Rhodes, it's the same thing with her. She might just ask one question that makes the client or the person go, oh, or she might say one thing that makes them go, oh, to get back to themselves. And that's really how it works.
So let me ask you a question. So first of all, I appreciate what you just said, because you did answer my question for me now that I framed it that way. I realize I need to get more information, actually, because you're right. Like, the number that I have in my head that I would do is not going to affect what I'm trying to do on the other side. I would never do that, ever. But I realize that there's multiple layers as to why I'm uncomfortable. Some of which is social, some of which is fear-based, and some of which is like not having enough information on how I can help in a way that makes me feel comfortable. So,
and the lacking clarity piece is so real. Sometimes we don't make decisions because we're missing clarity, not because we're scared, but because with more clarity, we feel more empowered to make the decision.
Yeah, so that's so interesting. I actually appreciate the fact that we got to do a little bit of like micro coaching there, just because I think it kind of shows your genius, and it's really cool to watch and listen to. And I'm someone that's been like, I used to call myself like a coaching junkie. I actually like quit coaching because I was like, I keep going from. Yeah, I took a break. I was like, I think coaches really like coaching me because I'm like super open and I have really complex issues like I'm always solving. So I'm a fun person to coach, right? Because I'll lay it all on the table, and I don't hold back, because if I'm spending money on something, I want to get my value out of it. And so there's no like trying to get me to put my guard down. I'm like, hey, I'm going to show up and tell you fucking everything, you know? And so like, it's happened to me like 6 times where at least the last 2 times I have a therapist right now that I'm working with. And this is the second time where this has happened, where, and he's a coach actually too, and they're both coaches and therapists, and they're both guys that have like massive waiting lists to get, like, it's impossible to get on their calendar, massive waiting lists. But I was a warm referral, and they both told me they had massive waiting lists. And then I basically said, well, here's my issue. Who could you refer me to? And they said, well, and
wait, let me make space on my calendar. We can talk on Friday.
I'm talking to these dudes on Sundays. you know
they really want to talk to you if they're talking to you on Sunday.
Yeah. I'm like their most interesting case, you know? So yeah, I'm like, this is good or bad that I consistently can get in to see really hard therapists to get in to see like on the weekends. But yeah, so yeah, look, I think that's like, when did you like realize like this was a gift for yourself? Because obviously like that's a gift what you have.
I really actually looked back on that as I was writing the book. And I realized, and I talk about this in the book, I realized that this has always been a part of who I am. I do a really good job at reflecting. And like I was saying earlier, it's not that I always have the best answer for someone. It's just that I can see the next step to get us to the best answer. And that's something that has been with me for a really long time. But I don't think it was until really this year in writing the book where I connected my own dots of like, you just get paid to do what you've always been doing. Like, I remember having a conversation with someone in college and telling them I would love to just get paid to talk to people, but I had no interest in being a therapist. Like, it wasn't for me. I've had therapists that have told me you would be a really good therapist, and I knew that I didn't want to just be in therapy. And I believe in therapy. That's not me saying that because I don't believe in therapy. I just knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do. So looking back as I'm writing the book, I realized, I've always kind of done this, but I also think that that's true for everyone. Like, if we tap into your gifts and your zone of genius, we can probably correlate it back to your patterns and behaviors when you were in 9th grade in ways that maybe, we haven't talked about it on this show, right? But you probably already know this about yourself. You probably can connect patterns and behaviors and personality traits and who you are today back historically 10, 20, whatever years ago, and say, oh yeah, you know what? This has always been a part of me. It's just as I've allowed it to grow, it gets better and better and better. And I'm able to help more people and bring more light to the world when I do it.
What, so when you start thinking of, I have a question. Some people, so first of all, I don't know if you know this, I'm half Persian. Did you know
yes.
that, by the way? Mirshahzadeh is like super Persian last name. So if you ever see someone with the last name Zadeh, Zadeh, that means descendant of in Farsi. And so I'm Persian, and so there's all the, by the way, on like IG and on like TikTok, but I follow, I'm mostly on Instagram. There's tons of like these really funny like Persian comedians that like make fun of Persian people. And so I grew up with a very Persian dad, and Persian culture is like fucking amazing culture. And so what I'm about to ask is a very Persian question. So
Trying to
Persians
brace
always,
myself for the Persian question.
yeah. The Persian question is gonna be, we always do the greatness question. The greatness question is new, so I didn't actually tell you about that before, but we'll do this. We always end on the greatness question now. The Persian question. So Persians love talking about money, and so so my Persian question is, how much do you charge clients to coach them? Like, what is the typical coaching like contract look like?
What does it look like? It's about $1,000 an hour is what it comes down to. So the way that I coach people, but I just answered that on an hourly basis, which is not what I wanted to do at all. It's $2,000 a month, and it's 2 calls a month and text in between. And I start people at 3 months, and typically we extend the engagement if it's, the right fit. But
okay,
that's what it is.
Okay, that's good. Sorry.
I know, because you're totally fine. I caught myself. It's like, I totally just made that hourly when this work is not hourly at all, but I answered you on an hourly basis. Now I also have, I've also got clients that I work with their teams, not the entire team, but for example, like I've got a recurring meeting with CFO, sales leader, and CEO every 2 weeks where we look at for sales forecasting stuff, and I'm there to like poke holes in what we're talking about and ask questions and say, hey, how are we thinking about this, and hey, are we thinking about that? And then it helps make the business money just by having a third party in there that's a little bit outside of the day-to-day to bring the questions in. So that's more obviously if I'm working with like a CEO and team on some level and their executives, the packages grow. But just on a one-to-one basis, if it's just the CEO that I'm working with, it's that.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. So the reason why I was setting that up is like people get like offended sometimes when Persians people like myself ask this is a business question, so it's not, but like literally I'll walk in, I'm like, I think this is hardwired in like that region of the world, like Middle Eastern folks, and like from have like, this is a very like Middle Eastern thing to do, like to ask someone how much something costs, right? And so and whereas like white people get offended when you do it, and I always like to make fun.
No offense. I would have answered it a different way had I known you were going to answer. I wouldn't have immediately talked about the hourly, but I'm not offended by the question.
I'm a fan of you don't want to work for hourly wage, right? So you want to have more of an engagement, like a minimum.
Well,
right?
And here's the thing too, like at this point I have a book, and if you're going to get on a conversation with me about talking about working together, you're probably going to have read the book. You're probably going to have answered your own questions, and we're either going to work together or we're not. At that point, it really is just like, hey, we just need to see if we're a good fit for a few minutes. And that doesn't happen in the beginning, but after doing this for as long as I've been doing this, you just kind of get your business to a point where some of that takes care of itself on the front end.
Yeah, that makes sense. So right now, like, what's your goal with the book? Is this really like a top of funnel to like help get your get your name out there so people learn about the work you do? Is it just like something you were called to write? Combination of both? Like when you think about the book, I know a lot of folks, especially in the coaching world, it's really kind of like a really nice business card. Like, how do you think of the book?
I would say all of it. Led more by I really feel called to write this, and I play in logic just like anybody else does that's running a business. I'm not going to write a book that's not going to help me with the business, right? Like, so it needs to be a tool that I'm able to add to the business toolbox to A, help more people, but also B, like I was just saying, if someone's thinking about working with me, I want them to read the book first, because that's really going to answer the question for them. Totally. They're the best person to answer that question. And I don't have, like, my business isn't in a position where I'm like dying to look for massive amounts of clients. I stay really consistently healthy as far as my client base. And the book is a way to really explain to people, this is what the process is going to look like. This is what it's going to be like to work together. Is this a fit for you or is it not? At the same time, it's also a way, as my client base continues to stay pretty full, that I can help more people and it doesn't take my one-on-one time. Is it going to make me a millionaire? Like the book alone? No, it's not. But I do this work to also help people. I want to make sure that, and I think this is going to get to your last question that you're going to ask me. Why do I do the work that I do? You know, I want you to ask the question that you're going to ask, but I assume it's probably something along like what motivates me, what pushes me, and I want to bring more light to the world. I really do. Like that is what leads me every single day to show up and do the work that I do. I believe in the process and I know that it helps people, and that's enough for me to want to try and reach more people with it.
Do you think so? When you have, I want to ask a question, and then I know we're coming near the end of the show here. So I'm going to end on the greatness question. But when you meet folks who have like challenges around abundance mindset, you know, and for you, it's to your point, it's like, hey, this is a decision. How do you like get people there, like who aren't there? Because I'm telling you, you're talking to someone that has. I'm kid you not, if there's like a scarcity abundance like spectrum. I was probably on the far end of scarcity up until, I don't know, a year ago. And by any objective measure, someone would look at my life and be like, that's fucking crazy that you feel that way. And I'm like, I did. I couldn't help it. Right. And now I'm like in the middle, you know, I'm not all the way. I'm not where I'm like I'm still pretty careful with money, and I'm still like kind of looking over my shoulder a little bit, but like not like I was before. Like, how would you, what gets people to start moving in that other direction?
Well, first I want to tell you, I want you, even if you don't read the whole book, because I know you have a million things going on in your life, I want you to flip to Chris Evans' story, which is in the identity section. So it's about 40 pages into the book, and read his personal story. That's the other thing about the book that I think is cool. I've got a bunch of client stories in it that tell their own process in this and how it applied to them. Because that's who we're talking about right now. Like that persona of self, Chris Evans is in the book, and that's what you're asking. And it's a lot of healing work, you know, and that's where sometimes tough love isn't the best thing to give your clients. Sometimes you need to help them tap back into that sense of love themselves that they're not connected to. And that's the best thing you can do for them and their company at the time. Sometimes it is tough love, but you have to know which one to play into. And that is intuitive in and of itself, both by just a knowingness, but also you've done it 100 times with 100 clients and you know where somebody needs to go next. But it's a series of healing work. And I don't mean just telling your story over and over again, but really understanding where your belief system started and how it's playing out. And also actively looking at what decisions are you making today, every single day, not just sometimes, but being really, really consciously aware of how you're showing up in the world, not being too busy not to see it. And does it ever go away? Here's the thing, Darius, I don't know that it ever 100% goes away, because we have this thing in our brain called an amygdala. And unless we're going to just remove part of our wiring completely, and we're going to remove that amygdala, we might never be able to turn our fear response off. So to me, it's not making enemies with it. It's how can you learn to use it as an asset, and how can you become your own best ally?
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot, actually. Thank you for that. I will. You said Chris Evans is the chapter in the book I should read?
That's not the chapter, but he's the story. I'm going to figure out.
That's all right. Just
okay.
Ping me and let me know which one.
I'll ping you and let you know, because I want you to read what he shared, because that's exactly what you're talking about right now. And he was like the case for that.
Do you have, is this audiobook or just written book?
It will be audio. Yeah, I know you're an audio person. I actually thought about that before we got on, because I see that you share the audios that on your Instagram. It's not audio yet, but I'm in the process of it right now.
All right, cool.
It will be. Hopefully by the end of the year.
I'll read that chapter, and I'll actually try. The odds of me cranking through a book is about 99% more high if it's audio, because I do mostly audiobooks. I do read. I do like to read, but I can't do it while I'm doing other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like I like to go on walks, or I like to work out while I'm. A lot of it's in the car, on walks, or working out. Those are like the 3 times I read, and I read. I mean, I do a book a week, so for me that's.
Yeah, you
That's
crank them out. I see the stuff that you share, and you
40,
read some really great books.
Thank you. My favorite this year was actually one I haven't posted, which is this book. It was written by a porn star, Asa Akira. So I didn't post it because I was like, I don't know. Like I'm like, there's people in the business world that might think I'm a little weird by listening to this. So I'm like, so there are definitely books I don't post that I read, but I'm like, I just finished Britney Spears biography, which was. Which was awesome.
You are such an anomaly. You really are. It's so great. I wore my pink shirt today for you, by the way. I wore this because of this show.
I love it. Well, I want to honor your time, so let's finish with the greatness question, and then I'll get you out of here, and then we can get people plugged in so they can get your book. So the greatness question, we started doing this, I don't know, a year ago or so, is what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Oh man. I mean, I feel like that's pretty easy, believing that I was worthy. When I look at my old programming, I had a lot of fear response and seeking control patterns and needing to know that I was safe. And, that's a whole another podcast in of itself. But moving through that and healing through that and getting back to just knowing that I am enough and that is safe is the biggest thing.
I love that. That's amazing. And you are enough. That's the most beautiful thing about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Malorie Nicole, you're such a badass. You guys, the book is The Abundance Decision. Where can people get it? Where can they connect with you if they want to learn more, Malorie?
Yeah, theabundancedecision.com is where you go.
All right. Easy, and if they want to learn about your coaching, would they go there, or is there somewhere else they would go?
They can go there. Yeah, just go there and then go up to contact, and you can schedule with me or shoot me an email. The platform that I'm most social on is actually Facebook. I know everyone hangs out on Instagram, but I've been hanging out on Facebook for years, and I just stayed there. And my email list. So either one of those.
It's funny, like I think of the social media platforms as different nightclubs, and and like I'm super cool on, like, if I post anything on Facebook, I get like 150 likes and shit. I have about 2,000 followers on there. And on IG, I don't get the same love. It's weird. You know what, though? I will say this. I did not follow any of the people from high school on IG. So all the people that know me best, like high school and college, like I'm like, I don't want to see their shit. So I don't follow anybody. It's mostly like people who are influencers that I'm interested, or people that
business stuff.
Or topics. It's a lot of just stuff I'm just interested in. So if you got, when you go in the search function, it shows you like what you like.
Yeah.
I'm like, nobody wants to see world. It's like pizza, people working out, cars, and fitness models. Like,
oh my gosh.
Of both sexes. I'm like most people, like, I'm like, you do not, and then a bunch of like comedians. It's like that's my shit. Malorie,
well, the algorithm knows you.
Yeah, I'm like, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. If it was to like go straight superficial. Anyway, Malorie, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on the show, and I'm really excited to check out your book and for the world to learn more about the stuff that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun to hang out again, and you just always ask great questions. So I appreciate you too.
My pleasure. You guys, go get the book, The Abundance Decision. Go to theabundancedecision.com. Until next time, peace out. Love you. She's my lover. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.